Hello, everybody. We're back. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, lucky you. No, Star Citizen Live is where we take about an hour at the end of our week and invite our developers on to answer questions from you, the Star Citizen viewer, backer, supporter, player, all that good stuff. On today's show, we have some of my favorite people, the folks behind the crafting and base building systems that were debuted at this year's CitizenCon Crafting Your Home presentation. So without further ado, because we got a lot of meat to get to in this episode, let's introduce our guests, starting with, who wants to go first? Who are you and what do you do? Jacob.
Okay, looks like it's me. Yeah. Hi, I'm Jacob, senior gameplay programmer on crafting. I work on all kinds of gameplay systems, stuff like life support, salvage are probably the things I'm best known for. But yeah, now working on crafting.
All right. Who's next? Luke.
Hey. So my name is Luc Gijsbertsen. I'm the lead environment artist on the EU locations team, and we are responsible for building the beautiful worlds that the beautiful gameplay systems from the other guys are you can play in.
Okay. And Declan?
Hello. Yeah, my name's Deck. I'm a system designer on base building and crafting.
And Torsten.
Hi, I'm Torsten, lead systems designer for the core pillar gameplay system design team.
And what's that do?
Basically,
Designs
that is
pillars, clearly.
it's no, it's the now we have the overarching system design team that is responsible for Squadron and Star Citizen system design team, or system designs, and yeah, that's my position.
Good for you. All right. So as we are wont to do, we put up a Spectrum thread earlier this week to collect questions from our Star Citizens. People voted up which ones they wanted to see answered most. You four went through the thread and pulled the ones that were most applicable, that had answers that are in further stages of planning or ready to share with folks today. So if you are wondering, as with every episode of Star Citizen Live, why your show or a specific, or why your show episode question why your question wasn't picked or whatnot, it's simply because we focus on the questions that have answers that are a little further along in the development cycle and stuff like this. It's because we want to make sure that the information we give you is as accurate and current as possible, even though we all know the only constant in game development is change. So with that, we're going to jump right in. You picked a big one to start us off with, so we'll just jump right into it. What can player bases be used for? How will base building integrate with other gameplay features such as mining and trading? Anyone?
Not all at once. Okay, I'll take this one first. Yeah, so this is a big one because we really believe that base building will enable us to really change the universe, the way that players will interact with one another or not want to interact with one another, and it will become hopefully more of the backbone of the game, where even if you want to interact with it or not, one way or another, you are always influenced by the gameplay loops of base building. So for an example, maybe you're just a small miner and you want to just mine your resources and kind of ship that out and make a nice living out of that, then for you it might actually be good to have a small little base close by the mining resources to more efficiently do your gathering of your resources and so on. And the cool thing with base building is that we're trying to keep the possibilities as open as possible, so that you can actually choose what you want to do with your bases yourself. So maybe you have these weird bases just tucked away in the universe where it's just like there's no electricity and you just use it to store away some of the stuff you found in the universe. Or maybe it is a more of a sprawling trading hub for you and your organization, or a base just built for the most efficient refining processes or such. Again, the guys know a little bit more about the specific processes, but from a visual perspective, what we're really trying to do is to just give you a beautiful base template that you then can let your imagination on loose and kind of use it the way you want to use it as a player, even though it might be very different than other players.
Yeah, I think you really hit on it there. It's very much a base can be used for whatever you want to use it for. That will provide options for you to do all kinds of stuff with it, and there should be, or is likely to be, relevant links into pretty much any kind of gameplay that you can think of.
So we're
Actually,
talking.
adding to that,
Go ahead.
it's like it's a growing feature in addition to what we have already, right? So every gameplay loop that we have will be also have its representation in the not every, but most of the gameplay features that we have will probably have a representation in the base building aspect, and the bigger our game grows, the more features are introduced, they will also find a slot in the base, in your base.
And just, so,
Yeah.
so we're talking
So
about. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if you don't have your own base, it's still impactful because you'll be visiting the other people who have made their bases and using their facilities. So even if you're not doing the work, it's still an interesting thing for you to use.
So we're talking player housing, obviously, refining bases, fabrication bases for crafting, which we'll get into more today. Hunting lodges for people who want to go out and take out the fauna and stuff. Logistics, you mentioned storage stuff. It's basically, and then it goes on and on and on. It's whatever folks want to use their bases for, there will be some way, shape, or form to support that in most cases.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. One of the big questions that folks had, we're of course on our journey to 4.0 right now. Folks are watching the PTU for the next wave and release and the eventual publication of 4.0. The big question I saw probably most commonly after CitizenCon was, how does all this work with shards?
Yep, this is a big one indeed. I think I saw this asked 20 odd times. So the plan is that every base, every plot of land, every extraction pot will be visible across all the shards within a region. And then a lot of the functionality of the base will also be available across all the shards within a region. So if I make a base and I set up a shop, people on other shards can come visit and use my shop. The exception is going to be raiding and attacking a base. This can only occur on a single shard, and which shard that is dynamic based on the rule set. The easiest rule is always, is the owner online? Then the raid can only occur on that owner's shard. This means that if I'm on another shard and I rock up with a gun and I shoot the base, it'll prompt me, you'll have to change shard in order to attack this base. Obviously as shards increase, we see this less and less, but the advantage of that is that you'll never be in this scenario where your shard, you're not able to defend your base. You'll always be able to defend your base in this scenario.
And if you're offline or there's a representation of your base in another shard, it's basically just a visual replica in those places.
Yeah, but people can also still use it. So the shops will still be functioning, that kind of thing. It's just when it comes to attacking, it all has to occur on a single shard.
Interesting. And I can already see half the comments already in response to that answer. There's still a road ahead between now and the release of base building and crafting. I promise you we will revisit this topic with more and more context on how that will work as server mission comes online and the technology continues to evolve. As with everything, there's a plan today. As the technology progresses, that may change or evolve over time, but that's the current implementation that we're working towards, and you can guarantee we'll be talking about it again between now and the release. What will this look like in, well, so this is just a follow-up. So how will this look like in terms of offline raiding and base defenses? Is there any aspect of this, if I just don't log in, is my stuff just always safe? Is there some decay timer? Is there some danger? How do you get rid of old decrepit bases that are just abandoned?
Yeah, so if you are in the scenario where your base is in a lawless area and you haven't secured the planetary shield tech from the previous week's station warfare, then you are open to be raided whether you're online or offline. You can create your own defenses to deter that. You will be able to create your own shielding, which forces them into a ground assault, walls to delay the ground assault, turrets and such. And then it could be the case where they're raiding the base and they don't actually know what's available to loot. They don't know what's in your storage. So it would be wise to occasionally take your valuables out of the lawless area and haul them back to a more safer spot like Terra or Stanton. But if you find yourself open like that, you can be raided.
Okay. I like how these first questions are all about how do I destroy and pillage other people's bases. Not about how do I live my life in these bases. How do these bases make my life better and more enjoyable? The first questions right off the bat are how do I take it away from somebody else?
It's great. We spent so much love and work in order to make the most beautiful bases, and now we're talking all about just getting rid of it. Great.
Yep.
And that's, of course, like I said, the lawless systems like Pyro and stuff. Now, we did introduce, and you just mentioned the idea of planetary shields. How? What's our current plan for how those will work in high security systems versus low security systems?
Yeah, so the plan is with planetary shield tech that if you have it, your base is immune to attack, your stuff cannot be stolen, and there's actually 2 layers of shielding going on here. You have a air shield, which prevents bombardments, and then you also have, basically it hugs the building, so even if you go through the shield with a tank and try and shoot the building directly, it still won't take damage. So you really are, you're very, very, very safe when it comes to planetary shield tech.
Okay, and that's the same for if I build it out in the fields of Hurston, or if I put it on somewhere in Pyro and I have the credits to maintain the shield.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Will mining extractors and other processors automatically eject boxes, allowing anyone to just tractor them away, or will we have to eject them by hand?
All right, I'll take this one. But there's a few things here. So there's lots of different crafting machines that do their processes a little differently, but most of them will have an internal buffer that lets them hold the results of their process until you're ready to pick them up. That being said, you can also have them directly put stuff in boxes as soon as it's ready. But if you're worried about people nicking it, you don't need to be so concerned because they'll be subject to the same sort of permissions as anything else in your base. So that's like the mag lock that stops people stealing your chair will also stop them stealing your cargo boxes. Unless they have permission to move them, they'll be mag locked to the output grid.
And we'll get into the maglocks here in a little bit.
Yeah. There's going to be some machines that will be able to send their crafting results directly to your location storage, whether that be your hangar or a freight elevator or something. So there'll be options.
Right. There was a mention, it says kind of like an underground transit system and stuff that allows certain buildings to connect with other buildings underground, even if you don't see them connected above ground.
Yeah. Freight elevator network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, a mining question. Will underground deposits respawn over time, and how is the overall rarity of minerals accounted for in the economy?
Short answer, yes. So they will respawn, but it is very unlikely that they will respawn on the land plot that you already have. So if you already have a base, you already extracted it, every mineral that was below your extractor, it's very unlikely that the deposit will respawn. So what we want to see there is players more moving around in their bases and basically going through new locations and actually grabbing new resources. And to answer the economy part of that question, yes, that is a huge undertaking that we have to go through here, and that is like we really have to get certain resources out of the system, and the system being our game. And that means that we, as the system design team and everyone working on that, we really have to work closely with the economy team and make sure that even everything that we pull out of the system is meaningful, and then we create certain values for certain resources, because we really want to have a player-driven economy, and we want to have a healthy in-game economy that is driven by our game. And it's a it's a challenge, but we are definitely motivated to resolve that and get that like in a really good state.
You
Yeah.
meant.
So what
Go ahead.
what you're talking about there is like the concept of resource sources and sinks, because having your extractor on your base is a source of resources until it's depleted, but then we need to make sure that there's also sinks in for that resource in various gameplay loops, so that you don't just have inflation essentially of just a build up of resources you can't do anything with. So yeah, that'll be a very careful balancing act.
Yeah. In Torsten's answer, you mentioned something that I think maybe not a lot of folks have considered, this idea of having multiple or mobile bases. Obviously, folks with the land claims, and we'll talk about the land claims in a bit. You build your home. You might stake out your home. This is where I store my stuff and I decorate and all that stuff. But for industrial purposes, while you could certainly build that location up, then go out, gather stuff, bring it back, there is a gameplay style where you then instead create smaller mobile bases and move them around as you need stuff like this.
Yeah. So you can still have your static home base with your like first extractor, but at some point your deposit just runs empty, and that like you can still leave the extractor there if you like the look of it, but then like if you still like the area and you don't want to move away, you can just like disassemble the extractor and then like decide to, okay, let's buy a new plot or let's move to a new plot and actually find another resource there. So yeah,
I think that leads into
if you
our
want
next.
to stay.
I think that leads into our next question really well. Can we deconstruct buildings, and how is this done?
Yes, you can deconstruct your building. So there it is, like you would construct it. There's the construction AR mode. So you will make use of the drones. The drones then will disassemble the building, and if you have a freight elevator, they will automatically put the material that they gather from the disassembling process onto the freight elevator. You will get some of the material back that you invested in building, but we will because it's just it's a gameplay mechanic, but it also makes sense, right? In the disassembling process, you will not get one-to-one what you invested. There is a loss of material in there.
Every video game economy in the world has to have sinks, resource sinks.
Correct.
My worry is that like IKEA furniture, once you take that thing apart, does it go back together the same way? Or will it function worse? So we've talked a lot about
Well, I guess actually the beauty of that is that it doesn't have to go back the same way. Once you take it apart, you can use those materials to make something else out of it. Once your extractor's dried up, make something else instead.
Fair enough. So let's talk about making stuff. We've done a lot of base building stuff here. Let's do some crafting. How does crafting change existing gathering methods such as mining and salvage?
That is a bigger topic because, so the TLDR, or the short version, is the mining that we have right now will change more drastically again, and we will revisit like other gathering methods that we have. Like we have mining, we have salvage, and salvage will also get like a nice little treat, but let's start with mining. So on the mining side, we basically have to, because of the quality that we add to the minables that you will now find, we talked about that and we considered that, okay, with the mining system right now where we have multiple resources per rock, that doesn't make any sense because you might want to look for quality instead of finding like a specific resource. So we want to make it easier for the player to actually look for the specific resources they need for the crafting processes. So we will basically split up or we break out the randomness in the minables that we currently have, but have bespoke minables. So we will find the copper rock, the iron rock, the
Titanium
rock. Thank you.
Titanium.
Like I was so the titanium rock, and because what you're looking for is a better quality there, right? So you will still look for like the titanium rock that basically fits, like has the perfect quality, but you don't have to look for a rock that contains titanium anymore.
Interesting.
And here we also want to emphasize, or we want to utilize the new planet tag that was also talked about at CitizenCon, where we want to make use of the biomes that we get through those, and then have like more meaningfully placed minerals on the planet. So you will find certain materials more likely at a riverside or in a certain biome versus in other biomes. So we are really looking forward to get more control over that. So yeah, we are internally quite excited about that. And yeah, and additionally on the mining, so we now talked about like the minerals themselves. We will also be more concrete on the minables that you find based on the profession that you picked. So if you are a ship miner, you will find ship mining deposits. If you are an FPS miner, you will only find FPS minables. And if you are a ground vehicle miner, you will find ground vehicle resources. And if you want to use your ground extraction tool in your base, you will find specific materials there. So what I'm saying here is that we don't have the shared minerals anymore that we currently have between FPS and ground vehicle mining. We will have the hard cuts. So everything you will find in FPS mining, you will only find in FPS mining. Everything ground vehicle mining, only there. Only ship mining, only there. So we will have a clearer separation so that we can actually encourage the different gameplay loops a bit more effectively.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That it'll mean that whichever kind of mining profession you choose to do, you'll have some valuable, unique materials that you can only get with that profession.
It's going to be a lot more different materials as well.
Yeah, the amount of materials that we will have is
Yeah.
And you can be sure,
crazy.
and you'll be sure that between ISC and SCL, we'll definitely cover that in the future. I really like everything you just said, and it all sounds great. I like this idea of moving them to the biomes and making them biome specific and stuff, because while scanning will always be a part of the Star Citizen experience, and that will continue to evolve and get better. This idea that someone who is experienced and someone who is knowledgeable can just, fly over, do low flying, over the surface of a planet and use it to be like, okay, no, that's an area I'm looking for where titanium is, and I know titanium spawns in areas that look like this, and easily spot that and stuff like this. It's low flying can evolve to being surveying, manner of speaking. But for the people who are,
it makes it also easier to find the minerals, right?
Yeah.
Right now you are little shout out to Red Monster, but you use like mining guides online, for example, to know exactly where you have to go to actually find what you are looking for. And with this, we want to make it more accessible, that it's logical where you find certain things, and then it's also clearer in the sense of, because it's just one thing that you will find there, right? So hopefully our goal is to make it more accessible, and not that accessible in the sense of people that are new to the game are also more attracted to the gameplay loop, but we still want to keep the expert gameplay to it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Easy to learn,
mentioned
difficult to
it.
master.
Yeah, yes. There's the thing that I mentioned at the beginning, that Salvage will get also a little revisit, and something that I'm really happy and excited to tell you is we will have some time to revisit it, and what we will do there is, I think, something that a lot of people already expected or for the initial release, and that is in regards to the construction material that you actually get from munching from
Structural salvage.
From structural salvage. Thank you. That is basically the ships are made out of certain components, and once you basically gather them through that, you will have those materials, and then there will be processes to separate them, but this is something that is still being decided of what way we want to go down there.
No,
Yeah, the thing I really like about this is that it ties it into the dismantle side of crafting, that if you dismantle something, you'll get back some of what it's made of. Same thing with salvage. Your ship just kind of becomes a portable dismantling fabricator thing.
No, that's very cool, and you're right. That is something that's been asked for some time. This idea that if I'm looking for, if I'm trying to craft my own spacecraft, and I need hulls, I need materials, for the hull, I can go and do hull scraping and gather some of the materials that I need for that. It's thematically similar.
Yeah, but as an additional note, there will be some materials that you won't get back. So like in the crafting process, right? So you will use some materials in the crafting process that are, like, let's say, volatile or in some way exclusive. So if you would then structural salvage your recently crafted vehicle, you might get some of the material not back at all. Like if, for example, bad example, but for an example, if you used antimatter in the crafting process, you won't get that back. You will just get back aluminum or copper and stuff like that. But those exclusive materials you won't get back in the reverse process of crafting.
Gotcha. I'm just happy I got you to say munching again. While we're still in crafting here, will there be limited use blueprints?
Yes. In short, yes. We're going to be supporting both finite use blueprints. So like you get it, you can only use it n times. And then also blueprints that have a cooldown in between uses. So you can only use it, periodically. It's just to give us some extra ways to balance and limit certain things, but we're not giving any examples of that at this point.
Yeah. I was there on a Hazy server in Star Wars Galaxies when it launched, cornering the market on Cracked Dragon Pearls and just ripping out so many items, so many weapons and stuff, so many armors to corner the market before anybody else could catch up. So it's nice to know that there are going to be limits on some of the more interesting things. Can you trade blueprints?
Yes and no. So we mentioned at SitCon that the blueprints are awarded to your character, essentially, to your character's virtual blueprint library. So if you get directly credited a blueprint from a mission or a reputation reward or something, then it's bound to your character. You can't trade it. But there will be some gameplay where you find blueprints on a data pad, and that data pad can be traded before you read the data off it. Once it's been downloaded, though, it's gone. It's a one-time download, essentially. So if you've already found this blueprint and you find another blueprint of it in a loot crate somewhere, you can give it to your friend. But once they've downloaded it, the data pad is dead. Okay.
And eventually, when we have a more robust trading system, I can see that being a hot commodity on whatever our version of an auction house will be. Can we use stolen materials to craft?
Absolutely. The crafter doesn't care about the legality of anything. I mean, heck, you can probably steal an item, dismantle it into parts, and make a whole new thing out of it. So,
seems like a good way to get rid of the evidence.
Yeah,
yes.
Actually, that is the recommended loop if you steal an item, right? So because items have an ownership associated to them, and either you somehow get rid of the ownership marking and replace it, or you go the easy way and just disassemble it and craft the item yourself, because you don't have to hunt down the materials, or not as much materials, because again, not the 1-to-1 ratio if you disassemble.
Okay. But I do like the idea of nicking someone's entire spaceship and deconstructing it and then making some other ship out of it.
Yeah. Luke, we'll go back to base building for a bit. How customizable will these things be in terms of materials, colors, shapes?
Yeah, like we discussed earlier, we really want to make sure that players are able to kind of make the base their own, and to also use the base for whatever new systems or the existing systems that we have out there and gameplay loops, right? So, for an example, a hunter's lodge, you might want to tint it in a specific way with the buildings and so on, so that it blends nicely into the environment, so that it doesn't stand out or get any attention of other bypassers flying by. Where if you are building more of a trading hub, we want you to be able to kind of again, tint the buildings, maybe put logos on the sides, and really kind of advertise like, oh, this is my location, come here, trade, and yeah, really have different ways of integrated. We have a lot of beautiful planets that have very different biomes and colors and structures, and we just want to make sure that we are providing a nice palette of different tints and customizables to kind of make it fit within every biome, every planet where you want to build your base. Something that we showed in base building as well, that a lot of people caught up on, is that a majority or a large portion of the buildings will also be able to be connected one another. So we're looking at we have generic buildings, and then the player can decide what they want to do within that building or how they want to tint it, and then those can be connected to corridors and other buildings and linked together, or to a hangar, and you can build your own little infrastructure with that. Well, I think it's really we're really excited to kind of see what players are going to do with those options.
And and I know this first version of base building we're talking about uses what we refer to as the high-tech aesthetic. This next question is looking way out, but we'll ask it. Will there be different styles of structure in the future? They give examples like a shanty town or even alien-influenced buildings.
Yeah, so there's indeed, with the introduction of base building, there's a lot of possibilities out there for us. For now, we're very focused on establishing this high-tech visual very well. We have a specific set in mind in which we want to release with. After that, like we've always already, or Declan discussed in his presentation in CitizenCon and already hinted at, is that there is more functionality to come that we also want to look at, like, for example, branching and trading and so on. And after that, it's really going to be a question about what kind of, do we want to expand the current high-tech set with new functionality, or do we want to start building a new set with a new aesthetic? But that is something that will we first want to see how players are going to react to the initial set, and then from there we'll make informed decisions based on the players' reactions.
Love to hear it. We mentioned the mag locking at CitizenCon and earlier today, so I want to get to this. I've seen a lot of questions, and you've got one here. How will we be able to decorate our homes in a way that there isn't physics jank just all over the place?
Yeah, that's I understand where the question comes from. So one of the options that we will have with decorative ER, the mode in which you get to decorate your place, is that you'll be able to kind of mag lock your furniture into place, and therefore only you or certain people with the right credentials are allowed to move the position of that object. In the future, there will be ways to disable the mag lock, I believe, but I'll have to look at Declan about this.
Depend on security and
yeah, out in the future. Yep. Yeah, that's again, for the initial release, we're still focusing on just letting you build your bases, and then in a future patch, we will start to really go into like PvP, and then the mag locking discussion will definitely be addressed there as well. For now, we just want to make sure that people get to create their bases, and that they have a possibility to just have a little bit of a safeguard with the beautiful things that they've collected over the universe and how they want to put them down. And one of the IDs that we were also playing with, and we'll hope that maybe some players are daring enough to try it out, is perhaps have a ship trading base, and where you have your specific showroom ships there or something. But you need to be daring that they're not getting nicked, I guess. Or again, stuff for the future as well.
Gotcha.
I'm sure they'll also maglock boxes together to make the ugliest structures that we've ever seen before, so we can look forward to that.
Declan, don't give them any ideas. We're made beautiful art for it. No.
You don't need to give people ideas. I already know what the first base built is going to look like, and I can't say it.
I am sure
It's called-
it will be the most magnificent base ever built. I have high trust in the community.
And in case anybody's new to video games, the acronym is called TTP. And we'll see how long that is. It's my last show of the year, right? Yeah, it is. Can you work together to create a base? Can you work together to create a base? Or can you charge a fee for using a base's services?
Yes. Again, we're trying to make it very dynamic and open so that different bases can cater to different players and different player experiences. So you'll be able to build small bases and maybe even slightly larger bases, but it might take a while by yourself. And then, of course, you can just team up and you can, together with a friend, really quickly build a smaller base, or really start to try to literally take things to the moon in the future. But you'll be able to build larger structures. Will be recommended to do that in groups.
I think I saw some people discussing whether they would be able to sell services on their base, though.
They
and
will.
I think that'll be pretty cool, that you can build up some infrastructure and have people pay to use it.
Okay, when you say sell services, my mind went to a different place. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about, I've built some really high-tier crafting machines, and I'm just going to let people come to my base and craft stuff with the best machines.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was
for a
thinking.
price.
It's definitely
What
what
were
I
you
was
thinking?
I'm thinking let's move to the next question.
I'm just very excited to just like. I used to be a little bit of a miner myself, and I can't wait for people just to kind of figure out like, oh, I got my little base here. I'm mining my own resources, and now I'm gonna start shipping it to like Declan's base, his base is all about refining, for an example. And I go and I use his services there, and I get my valuables refined, and then I'll sell it at Jacob, who is building his base. And then over the weeks and months that I'm playing my loop and doing my adventures, I can actually see Jacob's base expanding, and I can see how my involvement has a tangible impact in the universe.
Very
You've
cool.
also made some money, which is quite good.
True.
And maybe
Yeah.
even made some friends. And meet new people by selling them stuff.
Next question. Can you spawn in your base or group bedlog? Group bedlog. Now we're back to the services I was thinking about.
Yeah. Yes. But so you need the proper building for that. So right now the intention is that if you have a med bed or if you have an hospital area in your base, you can use the imprint system there and then use this as your gathering point as the group.
Okay. Declan,
Hello.
sit up. Okay. Yeah. Bases in caves or asteroids?
I would like to apologize to all the goblins out there, but it's not on the roadmap right now.
Okay. Well, we had to get to at least one question where it wasn't something we were doing. Let's see. Can we start a build using our drones from something like the Starlancer, then leave?
Yeah, again, a yes answer. Yes, you can. So once you set the building in motion, you can go on, carry on, log off, and the drone will basically do its job, and while you're offline. And if the build finishes, the drone will then try to get back to its host or its mothership. And if the mothership or the host is not around anymore, it will self-destruct. And yeah, you need to get a new drone afterwards, but you will get a replacement by, if you used your Starlancer, for example, by simply repairing the Starlancer, and then you get it replaced by this process.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question here because I'm thinking about this. Obviously, either with the time it takes to build a base is not going to be instantaneous, and we're not going to talk about the time now. That'll be a thing that's determined over play testing and further development and stuff. But in that time, with your drones swirling around or whatever, what happens when people try to park their Idris right where you're trying to build a base? Like you've started, it was a flat parcel of land. You've started the process. It was yours. And then you started it. You've set your drones, like you said, you've logged out. And 5 minutes after you log out, somebody parks their Idris there.
So
They won't be
there
able
is
to.
still, yeah, in short, that's not going to be possible because there's, I think we mentioned it briefly in the sitcom presentation that it's a physicalized hologram, that the intended place of a building will be physically barriered. I don't know if you want to call it a force field or something, but just, yeah, you can't park there because it's under construction.
Gotcha.
Yeah, correct.
That's cool. I think I missed that. Let's go all the way to the end here. Where can space stations be built? And will there be smaller scale stations for smaller groups?
So there isn't plans at the moment for small scale space stations, and there will be some limitations on where you can build a space station, but you're not limited to just in orbit around a planet. You can build it way out in the depths of space and have it well hidden for whatever you want to hide it for.
Yeah.
So largely anywhere, but there will be limitations.
Yeah, I want to clarify. When he says that there are no plans for a smaller scale station, he's talking about the physicality of it right now. It's like we're building towards our first physical space stations, and those are the ones we're building to. As far as how many people it will take to build that one size space station and expand and stuff, that is also a thing. We have ideas, we have plans, we have intentions right now, but these are things that will continue to evolve as we get closer to the actual implementation of this feature. It's one of those things where, and if you've watched Star Citizen Live, ISC, listened to any of these developer interviews for any amount of time, this is one of the only constants besides change, and that's that we have to remain open to better ideas, more ideas, different discoveries about what the tech will allow us and stuff like this. What's actually fun? We may have this idea that it takes this much, then we find out, well, this is actually where it's fun and stuff. So as far when you say that there's no plans for a smaller space station, that is a physicality thing and not a comment on the amount of people necessary to build one. That is something that's going to be developed through a whole bunch of testing with you guys and our guys. So let's move on. If you pledge for a ship, will you receive a blueprint to craft it?
If you buy a car from the dealer, can you make more? No, you cannot. Pledging a ship does not give you the blueprint to craft it. You got to earn that like everybody else, but it gives you the ship, and you can use the ship. Like I said at SitCon, though, once you've got a ship, however you got it, whether you pledged for it or got it in game or nicked it or something, you will be able to upgrade it. So even though you can't craft directly, make a brand new high-tier ship, you can upgrade the one that you pledged for in-game materials and research and all that. But yeah, you'll be able to do that to ensure your vehicle has the best stats that you want for it.
Okay. And you just butted up against one of the other big questions that a lot of folks had after that presentation. WTF, the upgrade system. How does this work? What are tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is it the same thing for every ship? Is it different for every ship? Is it customizable, like I seem to think you just hinted at there? How are we expecting this tier system to work? Keeping in mind, there's still lots of development between now and its implementation.
Yes, absolutely. But I'll talk about the current plans. So first of all, there's different kinds of blueprint, and most of them will be upgradable through research. Different kinds of blueprint will get different benefits from researching them. So like a refining blueprint will get more efficient so you get a better yield of refined goods for raw input, or like a repair blueprint might be able to repair a little bit more effectively, stuff like that. But the one that everyone's probably asking about is the creation blueprint, which lets you make new stuff. And a higher tier one of those will let you craft the higher tier of the relevant item. So let's say you've already got the tier 1 blueprint for a gun, and it has stats like fire rate and recoil. You'll be able to see on the crafting UI the stat range for those stat types. And the exact value that you get when you actually make the gun will be dependent on the quality of the resources that you put in. When you upgrade the blueprint to tier 2, you'll see the tier 2 version of the gun, and those stat ranges will be shifted. So it'll have a higher top end and a higher low end as well. It'll be on average better, but the actual number that you get is still dependent on the quality of the materials you put in. Of course, the higher tier blueprints also need you to bring more advanced materials to them. And yeah, related to that is that these blueprints have aspects, we call them. It's kind of like parts of the product, so like the barrel of a gun or the grip of the gun or something like that, which will influence different stats of the item. So if you put materials into the grip part of the gun, the quality of those materials might impact the recoil, but it's not going to impact the rate of fire. And this becomes especially interesting for the very highest tier of creation blueprints, because then you'll get a choice of what materials to put into certain aspects, and based on the choice you make, it will influence different stats. So you might be able to choose between improving the recoil or the reload speed, depending on which material you put in.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I guess the only other kind of blueprint that's interesting for upgrade is the upgrade blueprint itself, because research and upgrade blueprints are not quite the same thing. But if you use an upgrade blueprint to increase the tier of an existing item, none of the existing stats or materials on that item matter anymore. It's just the new materials that you put in for the upgrade will affect the stats. And the important reason for this is so that whether you craft an item straight at tier 3 or craft it at tier 1 and then upgrade to tier 2 and then upgrade to tier 3, the resulting item will be the same if you use the same materials.
So you can't skip a step if you need, if you have the blueprint and
if you have the creation blueprint, you can skip, and you skip straight to whatever tier you want. The upgrade basically only exists if you already have the item and you don't want to spend all of the resources to make a whole nother copy of it. You just want to spend the smaller amount of resources necessary to turn it into the higher tier one.
And that upgrade blueprint, I assume one of the ingredients is the original item.
Yes.
Yeah, guys. And so you were speaking, you're speaking primarily of guns and items, but this system, one would assume, is also applicable to the ships as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And not only ships, also ship components.
Components.
It's like something that we really want to make sure is that we don't want you to go through the process of, because you crafted your tier 1 item, you then have to disassemble it to just craft a tier 2 item, right? So that is like nonsense. So we really want to enable players to have their item and then use the upgrade to actually still have the item, but then the better version of that.
So extrapolating this out here, if you take something like an Aurora, let's start just with a base level here, and you have now upgraded the hull to stage 5 or tier 5, where you've now used specific materials to customize specific elements and stats of that hull. And then you've done the same with the weapons, and you've customized the weapons up to tier 5 with certain materials to to benefit certain things. And you've done the same thing with the components to custom up to tier 5 to customize certain attributes differently. You can have an Aurora that is dramatically different than David's Aurora or Pete's Aurora or something. It's like,
absolutely.
This is where we start to see the differential between not just individual ship models, but within the ship model itself. And when some decisions are made that affect the baseline of a ship, the one that folks can buy in Astro Armada or whatnot, and so those decisions don't happen in a vacuum. They have to be accounted for. Also, the potential upgrade path that is coming with crafting and stuff like this. And if a ship is in a certain way where you're like, well, I'm not really a fan of it in its base configuration, but through time and effort on the player's behalf, maybe you can take a ship that you weren't totally happy with and now make it to something that becomes your daily driver.
Yeah, this calls back to the heavy balancing effort that Torsten was talking about earlier. That one of the big challenges is going to be very carefully balancing all of the different possibilities that you'll have access to with crafting. Because instead of just one ship has these values for these thrusters, the ship hull can change, and the thrusters can change, multiple tiers of them, quality scaling, lots of potential for variation. So yeah, we will be paying very close attention to this.
You're just creating a whole lot of work for Rich Towler and his team, aren't you?
Yes. Sorry, guys.
He's going to bust through the wall like the Kool-Aid man here in a minute. All right, we've got a little bit more time. Let's go back to some base building here. How well will bases blend into the surrounding environment? I think longtime players can remember that the very first outposts that ever appeared in 3.0 were almost always up on stilts because they couldn't deform the terrain. How well will our stuff blend in with the terrain?
Yeah, so you'll be able to kind of, again, with the tinting, you'll be able to kind of pick certain tint palettes that work better with the biomes that they are in located. You can also put buildings around trees and stuff. If you put the building on top of the trees, it will get rid of the trees, but with the nice precision placement mode through the construction ER mode, you'll be able to find a nice position and to kind of get some trees to maybe cover a little bit of your building as well. We'll see how that goes. Because we also have the construction drones that need to fly in and out, so we'll have to we're taking those things in account, but you'll be able to kind of blend it in pretty well if you want. And additionally, we'll have some buildings that actually will be able to kind of reduce the signature of your base as well, to kind of further kind of hide your base if you want to, or in the other way, like really make it stand out in the base in the environment. But yes, the idea is that we will have different tint palettes that fit with the different biomes that can be found on the planets.
One would assume there has to be some level of terrain manipulation, though. Is that entirely automated by the system, or will any of that be in player control?
Yeah, so the idea is that we don't want to fully allow the players to customize the terrain to their liking, because that would take away from the value of scouting for a good location. So there will be buildings that will do a very light terrain manipulation, just to make sure that like the staircases work and so on. But the majority, the best solution that we'll provide is the use of foundation tiles, the big concrete slabs that people get to place down, and then on those they'll be able to kind of put their buildings down. And those will deform the terrain, so if you have a plot of land that is not particularly flat for you to build connectable buildings, then the idea is that you would put down a foundation first, and then from there on you'll be able to connect your buildings on top of there.
We can squeeze a couple more in before we're done here. How will player trading at bases work?
All right, I suppose there's two ways to look at this. You've got your seller and the buyer. If we look at the seller, then you've either acquired your items or you've crafted them and you want to put them up for sale, you can do that by placing them in a freight elevator, listing them on a connected terminal, or make a physical shop. And then there'll be a mobiGlas app where you can say, hey, I have T3 bombs for sale, everyone come and grab them before they're gone. And then as the buyer, you browse the advertisements on this new trading app, go to the base and purchase them. Or if there is a very particular item that you want, you can put in a buy order and you'll say, I want this item, this many of them, these stats, deliver it to this location. Obviously that'll cost more because someone has to accept that and then do the delivery, but it means that you get a very particular item that you want.
Okay, so it sounds like base one of the major components of base building will be this this next major step forward in player trading that folks have been waiting for. Like right now, there isn't a super easy system for of I'm going to give you this and you give me, credits in return. So it sounds like most of that comes online for the first time with base building.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see actually the spread between, like local shops and people who band together to make like big market bases where it's shared and hundreds of people can come and sell their stuff.
Yeah. And that's not to say that obviously we've got Mode Trader app for mobiGlas and stuff. That's not to say that this comes out before that comes out. It's just, as far as I'm aware, speaking in this moment right here, there's this, and I'm not up to date on the release of additional Mode Trader apps. So I'm not saying one comes before the other. I'm just speaking with what I know. Last question. We can let you all enjoy your weekend. When the Pioneer was first introduced in 2017, it was alongside it was this idea of land claims. And for every time the Pioneers come back into the pledge store, it's come back alongside land claims. In this year's IAE, it was brought back to the store without the land claims. That's led some people to speculate that land claims are gone or they're not a part of the design anymore. I'm going to say right now, they are. Let's talk about what our current thinking is, what our current plan is, what our current intention for how land claims are supposed to work. And keep in mind that, like everything else, there's a period of time between now and when this is implemented, and we reserve the right to have any better ideas that come along. We reserve the right to look at what you've said on Reddit and Spectrum and everywhere else on YouTube comments and have that inspire better ideas. So while these things may change, let's talk about what the current plan for implementation is for land claims.
Yeah, so there's a lot here. I'll kind of walk through just plots of land in general, and then we'll talk about how the land count beacons fall into that. So when you go to acquire a plot of land to build on, there's a couple choices you need to make straight off the bat. We have a general plot, which allows you to build anything, and then there are prospecting plots, which are a little bit smaller, they're cheaper, and they're more geared towards mining. You'll see a square layered on the terrain, and that's basically your current selected plot of land. You can grab a face of it, make it a rectangle, make it into a bigger square, and this is you selecting the surface area that you want, and the cost scales up with the surface area. If you were to purchase a 1 by 1 kilometer and then another 1 by 1 kilometer, it would actually be more expensive because the cost will take into account the total surface area you own on the planet. Where the beacon comes in is that you kind of skip this initial UEC cost for purchasing a plot. You just use the beacon and you have your plot of land. From then onwards, if you bought with UEC or you used a land claim beacon, there'll be a reoccurring UEC tax. And if you fail to pay that tax over a period of time, you'll begin to lose rights to your base, and eventually you'll lose complete ownership of the land, complete ownership of the building. They can be looted, someone else can buy up that area. That's, it's very important that we avoid this concept of like a dead base. We don't want people to be able to just go AFK either for a year, even though they stacked up billions in their account. Mm-hmm. We still don't want them to be able to have a dead base. We want to free that up for the players. In addition to that, there will be some limitations where you can buy plots of land and use beacons. We're going to have for want of a better term, national park, both in lawful and lawless areas. And it's a no-build zone, and this allows us to reserve land that's pristine for exploration, it's pristine for resource gathering, and so on. I think that, oh no, there's one other thing, sorry. When you have your plot of land, there'll also be an exclusion zone around it where no one else can buy or build, so you can't get boxed in. That is a high-level summary, I suppose, of the current plan for land claims and plots in general.
Gotcha. So let me see if I understand this to re-summarize it here. So anybody will be able to go and purchase a plot of land so long as it's available, so long as it's not in one of these no-build exclusion zones. You reference national parks. They're not literal national parks on Pyro 3 or whatever, but areas that are protected for gameplay reasons. We have to make sure that there's still plenty of areas to do missions and minables and stuff like this. So anybody will be able to buy a plot of land in one of the buildable areas. The land claims basically are your like coupon for that. It's like you can pay a brand new UEC cost to purchase that, or if you have a land claim, it's like, nope, I already prepaid. This is my prepaid voucher, and you hand that in, and you get the land claim for that. So it's open to everyone. One is just a voucher. You've already got that ready for you. After that, there is a maintenance cost. We talked about money sinks. Money sinks are essential to every video game economy that's ever existed. So there will be a recurring fee if you don't log in often enough. And again, the time period will be things that adjust like everything else in Star Citizen. If you don't log in enough to pay your stuff, eventually you'll lose control or ownership of that land. And then I assume anybody can do whatever the heck they want with your base and the stuff that you've put there. This is really good because, like you said, back on a Hazi server, I had a city on Naboo that was still there 4 years after I stopped playing. So, and then obviously, again, reiterating the limitations, not every single space on the planet will be buildable. You're probably not going to be able to put your base right up against the wall of Lorville. For instance, there's going to be exclusion zones to maintain all the other gameplay elements. But we have a lot of planets and a lot of moons with a lot of surface area, and we're making more. So, yeah, that about get it, Declan?
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Cool. Gentlemen, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. I knew when we were putting together this presentation for CitizenCon, you know how excited I was from the first day on. Like this is there are jokes on Spectrum and Reddit about how crafting is the answer to everything. It's not the answer to everything, but it is the next major step forward in the evolution of our game, alongside base building, where finally, for the first time, you have a true sense of ownership in the builds in the universe. So I'm really excited about both. I know a lot of our players are. So thank you for your continued work. Obviously, between now and the release, we will follow up. There will be additional ISEs, additional SCLs where we address the questions that no doubt come up after this episode. So keep them coming. Torsten, Jacob, Luke, and Declan, thank you so much for your time. This is our last Star Citizen Live of the year, folks, so thank you so much for tuning in. We have one more episode of ISE that airs next Thursday. It's our standard patch report episode where we're going to revisit a bunch of the stuff that are coming online with the upcoming 4.0, and then I gone fishing. We'll see you back here in 2025. So keep your eyes on the robertspaceindustries.com website for updates on 4.0 when it moves from into the next wave of PTU and then its eventual release. And thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for letting me do this. John, you did really well today. I can't tell the difference. Be nice to each other. We'll see you next year, everybody. Take care. All right, we're out, folks.